Yes, we learned it. I'm a little slow. Maybe the next 20 years I'll figure out these weren't going to teach. I'm fine. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. 8:30, last day of a great conference, and it speaks so highly of the people who are willing to get themselves up that way. We haven't even been excited last night, so I'm glad for you. I would say to you, first of all, we so appreciate having Oswego High School Blues Ensemble and their outstanding director, Stephanie Roman. They got up at 5 o'clock, forced to get here. And just a little side note, she shared with me that this is finals day, a day for finals, and their administrator said, oh, do you want to go play the Midwest One on Honor? Who worked out? So Robert Sheldon, who taught at Florida State University for so many years, I doubt that there's a person in the room that hasn't enjoyed playing his music. He's a composer, he's a conductor, obviously, and a master teacher. So who wouldn't want to come at 8:30 on a Friday or Saturday? Friday? This is Friday, yes. Come at 8:30 on a Friday morning and hear such an outstanding group. We're so appreciative of you being here and Ms. Roman for bringing them. Who would want to hear Robert Sheldon share 30 performance tips for concert band? Do you love them?
Okay through this? Everybody here all right? If you can't, too bad. There's nothing I can do about it. So thank you again for, as Paul was saying, getting up at this hour for 8:30 on Friday morning is actually a lot of dedication. And Paul said, talk about dedication, getting up in the middle of the night so that they can make their way down here. And I'm just so appreciative of Stephanie and this wonderful group. I mean, that's dedication. Thank you for being here. Band kids are the best. And the choral orchestra people that are here, you too. But I'm a little biased, that's okay. We all have our biases. I also, in addition to thanking this wonderful group, I want to also thank Alfred Music, who is sponsoring the clinic. And as you came in, you probably saw some music stands with QR codes. Also on each of these pillars, there's a QR code that is there. And Alfred asked me to let you know that everyone here this morning gets a door prize. Oh. You can take that door over there and that one over there. What they're providing for you is you do the QR thing and fill out the information that will give you, I believe it's $15 off of a $50 purchase at Alfred plus 20% discount. And we have all day on all kinds of wonderful things. So pack your familiar with, but we're glad that you're here, and thank you so much for being here. And what the clinic is about this morning is actually about as a result of questions that I frequently get asked when I'm doing, when I'm guest conducting. When it's not my own group, I'm actually conducting somewhere else. And we'll be in rehearsals, and at the end of a rehearsal, one of the musicians or somebody who's just sitting watching rehearsal will come up and ask me some specific questions. What I've learned over the course of a very fortunate lifetime of being able to have the privilege of making music with a lot of different people is that even though, and all the many of you do this too, you go out and you guest conduct, or even working with your own group, and you think you're there to teach them something, and you find out actually you're learning more from them than what you're teaching. And that's really the way I felt about this for many years. I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of different groups across North America and several other countries. But something I found interesting, it doesn't seem to matter what language the ensemble speaks, how old they are, anywhere from professionals down to kindergartners. Well, kindergartners usually don't play piano, but the young ones. And what their level of training is, what type of music they're playing. I always seem to find that I return to the same concepts when I'm teaching, when I'm rehearsing and teaching. And I bet that all of us do that. We all have kind of our own little grab bag of things that we gravitate to. And depending on the type of music and what you're playing, that can be a rather extensive list of things. So I got to thinking about this, and thought maybe there's a way that I can share with others some of the things that I've learned over the years from groups that I've worked with. And that's what this clinic is all about. So the handout, which is on the website, from the class, is called 30 Performance Tips. And It's basically divided into two sections. One has to do with expressive playing, phrasing, that kind of stuff. And the other part of it has more to do with acoustics. And that's a really interesting thing because I don't know why, yes, I do. I don't know why music educators don't take a class in acoustics. But the reason is because you're already taking more classes than anybody else in any of the nation. You can't fit in another one. But acoustics is a really important part of what we do. And whereas every room that you're in is different, every performance venue, you're rehearsing in one space, you're performing in another. Sometimes you have risers, sometimes it's flat. All of those things change everything. Where's the curtain? Is there a curtain? Is there a hard surface behind you? Is there a curtain behind you? There's all, what's the height of the ceiling? Where's the proscenium? All of these things affect that too, and sometimes in a pretty major way. And so I wanted to be able to share all of that with you. Now, there are a couple ways to be able to access the material that we're going to use this morning. As I mentioned, the handout is on the website. If you want to do that. On my website, margaretchildrenmusic.com. If you would prefer to use that one, I'll explain why in a minute. If you want to go to that site instead, you can scroll down the home page and you'll see it says clinics and handouts. And if you touch the button, it'll take you to all the clinics that I regularly use the handouts. The very first one is this one, 30 tips. And if you touch that button, you'll have a PDF handout, which you can print when you get home. And then the next thing is, if you'd like to kind of keep up with the score as we're going through this, I chose a piece this morning I've never used for this clinic, and that's deliberate. Just as it's deliberate, that Stephanie did not rehearse this piece with this band. Because they're so good, and she's so good. If she rehearsed it with them, we'd have nothing to discuss this morning. So she said, I won't rehearse it, we'll just make sure they got the notes and you take it from there. So we're not, this is all an adventure, okay? This is not the type of clinic where I'm going to get up and recite to you the same things I've said at every other clinic like this. I have no idea where we're going. This is just kind of a stream of consciousness type of clinic that we're going to do. But when you get to the page where, if you'd like to look at this, look at the score, if you use the search button on my website, you can put in the title Oracles. It's called Oracles of the Sirocco. And when you do that, it searches, this cover will show up. And if you touch that, it will take you to the page where this piece lives on that particular website, including the recording, which please don't play that during our session this morning. But it also has a sample score. So on your very tiny phone screens, if you'd like to look at a full band score while we're going through this, you have better eyesight than I do, but you're welcome to do that. But that is there as well. So just wanted to tell you that. So here's how this clinic will work this morning. And we just met a few minutes ago and kind of discussed it, so I think they're ready to go. On the 30 tips handout, after I hear them play a little bit, because I've never heard them play this piece, I'm going to come back to the beginning and we're just going to play maybe a minute or so and have to get used to each other because they have no idea how to do it. And then as I find things that pertain to this clinic, I will turn to you and give you a number, like whatever the number is, 17 to 24. That's the tip. And then we're going to go back to this group. They don't have that handout. And I'm going to explain the concept that I like to teach. And then they're going to attempt to do all those things. And then you get to determine a before and after. You've heard it before, and you'll see if it makes any difference. Now, a lot of these things you already do. Some of these things maybe you used to do and you kind of forgot along the way. And other things might be actually a new thing. It might be something you'd like to try. If you come away from the clinic this morning with just one thing that you can take with you to your next rehearsal, then I think it's probably, hopefully it will be worth it to you. So, you ready to go? Let's give it a try. Mark, let's give it a try. I don't know why this room has acoustics like that. It really shouldn't. But you get a lot of ambient ring. A lot of the things we're going to discuss this morning in terms of acoustics are ways for you to improve the ambient ring. Because when your room does that, the room loves you. And you want the room to love you and your ensemble. Because of how resonant this room is, some of those things might be a little more difficult. But you know, if you want, we can all go outside and do it out. You know, it might be they might get flat real quick with that temperature. But you know, the whole concept here, a lot of those acoustical things would be interesting to try this year. We're just going to play a little bit. We'll start at the beginning and just play for a few minutes. See what get used to each other. How about the simple? Ready? I'm not used to hearing that sound at 8:30 in the morning these days. Okay. Well, very good. First of all, topic number one. So one of the things that's really important, I think, when introducing a piece of music to an ensemble is if there's anything at all descriptive or programmatic about it. It's really pretty important that the ensemble knows what the inspiration was. So for this, I like to try that. And since I got kicked out of the best places, I have to try once. I found myself at one point a few years ago sailing off the north coast of Africa. I was about 10 miles off the coast of Libya, and I was holding on to the railway of the ship because the wind had really picked up. It was an intense wind, like nothing I ever experienced. It wasn't like, I mean, you get wind here in Illinois, but this was like crazy and searingly hot, very hot, intense wind. And I found out later it was the Sirocco winds. And the Sirocco winds kick in at different times of the year. They're very abrupt, and they're a little frightening, and very thrilling as well. And because I like to write music, I'm constantly letting my imagination run wild. So in addition to it just being a very hot wind, what I was actually feeling or imagining was that ancient beings from ages ago were in this Sahara region and sending messages to me through this wind. And I'm standing on deck holding on for dear life so I don't get blown overboard. And I'm feeling like these messages, nothing specific, but to me it was somehow I was there to receive these messages. Okay, I need to up my medication. But that's what I was actually feeling at the time. So that's why the piece is called Oracles, Wise Men of the Sirocco. That's exactly what it's called. Now, knowing that, now that we've discussed that, clarinets, can you play the beginning for me? Just all the clarinets. 3, 2, 3. So, what do you think that represents? What do you think? What do you think? It's the wind. So that's exactly what it is. So when you hear that, you want them to understand because that's the wind. So you want to use your imagination. Next thing, can I please have in measure 2, the bassoon, the bass clarinet, and all below brass, play that whole note for sure. Ready? So I want to talk about this. This is number 16. Could you all play the B flat chord again for me, please? Ready? We'll talk about acoustics and the pyramid. Have you ever discussed pyramid? Oh, good. Okay. How many of you discuss pyramids in your ensemble? Right. Okay. So in the United States, most bands only think one way to use the pyramid, and it's basically this: let's play the chord in the pyramid, and because of acoustics, the human ear picks up the highest pitches most easily. We need to, in order to achieve balance, kind of manipulate the volume in the ensemble. So because we're already going to hear the high pitches, so we're going to want to hear more of the low pitches, and therefore it sounds balanced, and therefore it sounds warm. So let's hold that note again with the pyramid and warm tone. And it's not going make it much better than that. Okay, that's lovely. But in other countries, I found they actually use the pyramid in other ways, in addition to this. And many of you may use some of these, but let me just give you an example of how the pyramid works. If you please play that same chord, we're going to do short notes, 5 staccato quarter notes on that same note. Ready? Staccato, ready, 5. And there's an ambient ring, but you might be able to improve that. And the way to do this, using the pyramid for acoustical purposes, is to use the pyramid, but instead of using it as a pyramid of volume, like we did when we held the chord, we're going to use it as a pyramid of duration. And the way we're going to do that is, those of you at the top of the pyramid, flutes, oboes, clarinets, first trumpets, we're going to have you do just what you did. I want you to play a little lighter and just a little less duration. Don't clip it, no clipping, because that'll change the whole thing. So not clip, just like. And the tubas, I want you to consider playing about twice as long as the flutes. So the flutes are playing top, top, you're playing top, top, twice as long, string bass also. Still with the separation, because remember it's top. And in between, the rest of you will adjust and do your pyramid. Let's give this a try. Same 5 quarter notes, and we'll freeze at the end of it and see if we hear a little better now as a result. Ready? Now. It's early in the morning. Try it again. I would go, a little more length in the string bass and two. It's a little bit. Try it again. And ready? Now. I'm not sure if you can hear a difference where you are. I hear it here. But I find this to be very helpful whenever you have long, whenever you have short notes. And lots of times it might not be necessarily a whole series of staccato notes, but it might maybe it's just like the last quarter of the piece or something. But this will really help the balance on that. Third way to use the pyramid would be for crescendos. Hold it up and make a crescendo. Ready, now. Which is beautiful. But not all crescendos necessarily are created equal in my mind. First of all, you might want to change the balance of the pyramid to be able to get a little more heft from the bass notes without getting as much of this from the treble. And the way to do that is to use our pyramid, kind of the way we do on that first long chord. So what I'm going to do, I typically would tell my ensemble, flutes, oboes, clarinets, trumpets, first alto sax. I want you to crescendo like crazy, but keep it all inside. Okay. I want you to provide the attitude of the crescendo, but not the volume of the crescendo. The volume of the crescendo will come from the lower brass, but not so much from baritone saxophone. Love baritone sax, but sometimes, and it's not you, I'm sure, but sometimes some baritone sax players, and you know who they are, when they play a little bit too loud, it sounds a little more like a lawnmower, right? So I'm sure yours will be more beautiful one. But what we're going to do, you're going to crescendo, but not as much singing as the bass player. And it'll be the tuba, the euphonium, trombones will carry the heft of the crescendo. See if this feels different. Not just sounds different, but if it feels different. Here's the crescendo again. Ready? Now. It's much more balanced, okay? And it doesn't, I'm not saying that every crescendo needs to be like that, but sometimes you might want more of a darker, more powerful type of crescendo. The other thing about crescendo, which is interesting, when you see a crescendo music, it might have a text, C-R-E-S-C. Most often, if it's a relatively short duration crescendo, it has the hairpin. That's what they call it in publishing, okay? The wedge, okay? They call it a hairpin. And because the students see that hairpin, and it looks like a symmetrical shaped wedge opening, they tend to, for a good reason, think that the crescendo is almost like turning up the volume, on a device with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe you just kind of go up like on a Likert scale, you go straight up. But sometimes a more effective crescendo is instead of it looking like the shape of, say, a trumpet string, if it looks like a French horn bell. You know what I'm saying? So instead of being like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 crescendo, what if it's a 1, 1 1/4, 1 3/4, 3, 8, 15 crescendo? Does that make sense? Try that again. See if it sounds right. Ready? And by saving more of the energy for the end of the crescendo, it can be really quite thrilling at times. Again, you don't want it every single time. It just adds to your repertoire of crescendos, right? And the fourth way to use the pyramid has to be on release. Hold note, make a release. Percussion and being association. Okay, here we go. Ready? And. Which is a beautiful release, but depending on your acoustical situation, it's always nice to hear the tonic and the bass be the last thing you hear, because it warms up everything. So what I'm going to do is we're going to use the pyramid again, and this time I want you to, if you play flute, clarinet, oboe, I want you to release the tiniest bit early. Everybody else pretty much release on time, except for the tube and the string bass. It's almost like I want you to imagine you release your sound and it goes into the tube bell and they release it for you. Let's try this. So you're going to do a little bit later on the release. Ready? Yeah. Yeah, that's the hardest one to learn because how long do they hold? And they feel a little awkward, doing that. But you can, if you want to be able to do that, so you hear that, it's very satisfying to hear that note. Very good. Okay, on that second, can I have the flute play measure 3? Ready? And 2, 3, 4, go. Very good. This is number 7 and number 2. So there are 2 things that I think all musicians need to think about every moment that you're playing. Number 1, how long is this phrase? Number 2, what's the most important note of the phrase? Because in my mind, music seldom is static. It either goes to or it comes from. It doesn't just stay there. That's sound. Sound can do that, but music moves, it takes you somewhere. It's a journey. Okay? So what are the keys to finding how do you determine what the most important note is? Well, in my mind, it's either the highest note, or it could be the lowest note, or it might be a note with a specific articulation or an dynamic on it, or it may be the longest note. So in those first 2 measures, which note is the most important? The longest note. Now, that means you're going to go to the long note, and once you get there, you have to wait. Otherwise, you're going to get quadruple 4 case before you get to measure 8, right? So let's try that again, and let's see how it goes. Ready, and 1. And then go to, right. And that way, the phrase has life. It all has meaning, which is really, really nice. Okay, and also trumpets, when you have that later, horns, you're going to do the same thing. But remember, later on, you're going to be in a conversation. You do it in hypnotic imitation with others, where the trumpets play, and the flute echo that. So when you do that, you're all arriving at a whole note. You're going to weave a tapestry of sound. You're coming and going at different times, which is interesting. Number 11. How are you going to play your rough in this measure 8, right? Ready? And 1, 2. Do one more time. Ready? And 1, 2. Okay. So what I would recommend, and there's nothing wrong with that, but what I like to hear is a little more definition. And the way to achieve that on a rough, are you right-handed? Left-handed. Even better. So what you're going to do is you're going to start on your left hand and end with your left hand. So you start and end with your dominant hand, and instead of ba-da-dum, you're going to go, yum. Try again. Cleaner, more interesting, more defined. That is the way I like to hear Russ play. Beginning, everybody. Ready? And here we go. musician, something I'm very helpful to do is to scan the entire page of music you're playing and see when you see something different in your music you haven't seen before. Maybe the first time it occurs in this piece. I mean, you've all seen all of this somewhere else before, but not necessarily yet in this piece. So right there, 2 bars before 20, you have some rhythms in the low brass and the woodwind that haven't occurred yet in this piece. Everything up to now has been a little bit similar in terms of texture, and that changes there. So when you get to something that's different, you want to bring it out just a little bit, bring it more forward in the sound. Let's start together, 2 bars before 20. See how that goes. 2 before 20. Ready, now. Okay. This section here with the tambourine plays and the horn and the trumpets play that rhythm, a couple things about it. First of all, it's a little strange. And I'm all about strange, so that's okay. I like it. But the thing is, it has to phrase in a way that the audience will understand this. We're talking now about number 6 and also number 7. So what I'd like to have you do, tambourine, which by the way, great job on that, and the height of tambourine, perfect, your technique is great, thank you, is this. Let's look at bar 30. And in those 2 bars, I would like for you to emphasize the seconds of each rhythm. So 1, 2, 3, dot, 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 try it. Ready? And the 1, 2, 3. And we don't want to overdo it, we want to feel the presence of the heaviness. Look at the next 2 bars. Accentuate the last 8th note of the score, and in the next measure, the middle one. So it's 1, 2, dot, 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 dot. Try that. Ready? And 1, 2. And don't accentuate too much, because remember, really, it's all about the tambourine. You're really just providing pitch to the tambourine. Okay, so let's try those 2 measures again. Ready? And 1, 2. Over time. Ready? And 1, 2. Now the next one, I would accentuate 3, and then the downbeat of the next measure. 1, ba, 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 ba. Try it. Ready? And 1. And then in the next ones after that, I accentuate the first and the third, and the next measure the second. So it would be 1, 2, ba, dot, do, ta. See that works? We're going to try that together. Everybody, you take at least 2 measures before 30. 2 before 30. Ready, 2, go. First of all, can I have the opposite axis of the horn play your part here at the 3/4, 4 measures below 50. And what I want you to do is to notice that the quarter note at the beginning of every second measure, that is a quarter. So since it's the longest note in the 2 measure phrase leg, it makes it the most important, right? So we're going to be going up, up, da, da. That same phrasing scheme going to the long note. Try it. This is not horse and alto. Ready? Yeah. And again, that provides a shape to something that otherwise would be shapeless. Can I have a triangle pledge for you? Now, he's playing this exactly right. Now, you always have to play the triangle later. I don't mean that the stage there, I mean where you're hitting the triangle. The answer is no. Sometimes, if it's a very complicated triangle passage, you may need to mount the triangle, play with 2 meters, and play across the bottom bar. But typically, unless you have a very, very wonderful, expensive triangle, the best place to hit it is opposite the break. And what I've often talked to students about is this, because I'll see them being played, unlike you, they'll just play the bottom. Play the bottom, which is not bad either. So it doesn't make a huge difference. But some of your triangles will make a big difference. So I'll just say to the students, let's say you were to take that triangle home tonight and get a pair of pliers and untriangle it, just make it a long tube. By the way, don't do that, your band director will kill me. But if you did that, if you turn the triangle and flip it from a triangle shape into basically just a long rod, where would be the best place to hit that? And immediately they go, oh, the middle. Because they understand you, in order to get the whole thing to vibrate, you hit it in the middle. Well, once you turn it back into a triangle, you still want to hit it in the middle, which is all opposite the break. But where you're hitting it, it's perfect, and that triangle is fun. The other thing about this has to do with, this is number 19, has to do with what we may call the toys of the percussion section, the small instruments. So, for instance, triangle and tambourine pencil. So, in the last tambourine section, not this one, the one previous, that you played with the trumpet and horn, it was perfect because it was all about tambourine. But you have basically 2 volumes on the toys. You hold it up here, it's loud. You hold it down here, it is not. Okay, that's basically how it works. So in this section, the tambourine is no longer the star of the show. You're a supporting role. So instead of up here, now you're going to hold it up. Now the triangle has not been heard yet. So you are now the star of the show. Plus you know that solo up there on the B2. Try that again. Now, one of the things that I would recommend to most triangle players is to hold the triangle up right in front of your face and use it as a triangular shaped window to watch the conductor. I think that sometimes it's a little weird looking, I know, but hold that a little higher. You see, and this way you see me and you see the triangle. You get away from it and start spinning, but now you've got complete control. So that's something I wanted to be able to mention there. Clarinet, so we can measure 50. Where's the most important note? What do you think? You're really shy. Then we talked about it could be high, low, could be long. You could make a case for that. The problem of doing that is where the high note occurs. It occurs in a very odd beat. So I would go to the long note. Go there. And that way it provides more shape to the whole line. Let's take it together, everybody. 4 bars before 50, please. And here we are. 4 before 50. 3 more times. And we're ready. And. Use your imagination, number 1. What do you think that is? Any thoughts on what you're playing? What they're representing? Those are the messages. They are spinning through the wind, and they're coming at us. Since this whole piece is about those messages, it makes that really important, which shows up when you look at the full score, because your parts are the only ones that are forte. Everyone else is mezzo. And I have also found this very interesting. This band will not do this, they're too amazing. But a lot of bands, if you ask them, what is forte? They will say, and we know that forte does not mean loud. I tell them, you've got to go to Italy. You really need to go to Italy. And when you get there, you learn immediately that forte does not mean loud, it means strong. Do you have to be loud to be strong? No. And the most important part of this is, yes, we know in band music, it says forte, the composer wants you to play loud, we get that. But if you think of forte as only being loud, you're missing the point. If you think of it being strong, you get strength and volume, you get parity. And that's what I want you to think of through these messages here, to be able to do that, have a message. And I also think it's really important, since most of our musical language is Italian, it's really helpful to learn a little Italian. And like I said, if you can go, even better. And there are so many musical terms that are so interesting in Italian when you learn the actual meaning of it. One of my favorites is sfumato. How many of you have been to Italy? Anybody been to Italy? Yes, and wonderful, right? Everything about it. How many of you have ever been at a fermata? Anybody? Then you know what I'm talking about, okay? So, the fermata in Italy has nothing to do with music. It's a taxi stand. It's where you go to wait for the taxi, maybe for the bus, the streetcar. I mean, there's no fermata sign like we have. But what the fermata does is it gives you a place to wait. And here's why this is important. When you go to Italy next time, take a taxi ride. It's insane. Because they don't understand the lines in the road when you stay in that lane. It is merely a suggestion. And are you going to even get to where you're going? Who knows? But you're in Italy, it doesn't matter, right? So for me, I like to tell my musicians, the fermata is not hold it, which is so boring. Instead, when I'm standing at a fermata in Italy, I'm ready to get a taxi. My next adventure is ready to begin. So I tell the ensemble, it's a fermata. You're waiting for your next musical adventure to begin. And it changes everything. They're not just holding it, they're anticipating. And I think that's a really important thing. I love being able to learn Italian words and use them in context. So what we're going to do here, again, the messages and the album, the center of the planet, it's all about you. Here we go, ready for 61, and more of the messages. Ready, 61, and us. When you have the singing section, this is good, you want to walk. You want everybody to know. Don't hold back. Impress them. Everybody. You play music. Next thing I want to mention is this. Clarinet. Did you play the 61? We're looking at number 13. This is 61. Ready? And 1, 2, 3. Good. Maybe because we come in the United States from a military background, we all have a tendency to train our students to sit very rigid. But sometimes movement is very helpful for two reasons. One, movement alleviates stress. So if they get to move a little bit, relaxation is really important. But in a case like this, that's a really tricky thing to play. It's a weird entrance and it's a constantly syncopated. So sometimes the slightest movement, just like this, just like you're playing, you go, just the tiniest bit, and it doesn't have to be really noticeable by anybody out there, but like in your section, you kind of feel it together. Try it. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3. Yeah, it's amazing. Just a little bit of movement. It's like you're all conducting each other, right? That's basically it. Very good. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's play all the sections. You did great with that. Thank you. Can I hear the bells play E4? Now, can you put my Isn't that cool? Now, if you're not used to using vibrato on bells, first of all, you can't do it on every note. Well, you could, but you look like you're having a seizure. So, on notes that are like a standalone note, like this one is, it's just all by itself. If you play the note and just play it without the vibrato, in this particular case, who is it the bells are normally playing along with? Flutes. What if the bells are out of tune with the flutes? What are you going to do? This will help that. The second reason to do it is the vibrato shimmers the sound all over the room, which is great. And the third and maybe most important reason to do it is it looks really cool. So whatever you need, but that's the way to do that. We're going to take that section once again. Everybody let's do measure 81. Ready at 81 F. Great trumpet solo. Good for you. Now I have something to be able to discuss with this, and it is number 4. So when you have a melodic line or a counter note, think about it. Really want to think about either going to or coming from, right? Okay, at least I do. You have the same pitch, yes. Please. So you have the same pitch on either side of the bar line. Exact same note. May not be the same rhythm, same duration, the same note. In the trumpet solo, you have in the third measure, second measure of 89, your last note is a B, correct? And the next measure, your first note is a B, right? So you have the same pitch on either side of the bar line. Question is, which of those two keys is the most important? The one on the bar side, the one you're going to. So when you have identical pitches, make the one on the other side of the bar line your goal. That's your destination. And you want to just emphasize just a little bit. Just give it a little more love when you get there. Here's measure 89. Why don't you have it pick up the 89 in the trumpet, the rest of you can do 89, okay? 2, 3. Number 27. So trumpets. Sometimes, by the nature of the trumpet, usually it's like a big bold instrument. But once in a while, there's a place like this right here, where you have these little background piano notes. I have the most wonderful mute to share with you. It is called Music Stand. So what I want you to do is put up your hand. It seems like you're going to play those few notes, what you're going to do. Now I want you to aim your bell at the middle of your music and lean in slightly, but not too close, you're going to change the pitch. Let's try this again in case the edge off, it relaxes them because they don't have to work so hard to be able to play quiet, and it'll just kind of blend into it. Horn solo is wonderful. We're great job. Let's have you, can you play the three eighths notes into the 105? And we're taking it right at 105 with the pickup. 1 and 2 and 3. It just takes the edge off a little bit. Not bad for your rehearsal. Thank goodness you played. I got lost. This is interesting. I wasn't expecting this. I mean, not that I expected the quality. What I didn't expect is I heard something in the music that I'd never heard before. And again, it has to do with rhythm, which is real fun. I guess I'm trying to do this. It's difficult with everything else we're doing as teachers to teach some of the inside mechanisms of music, like the overtone series, which is so important. Especially as a composer, you really use the overtone series all the time. And one of the things I have learned, obviously not long left, is that you want to avoid writing flutes, oboes, and clarinets up from, say, the concert B flat above the staff in thirds. And the reason is, when that happens, and it only happens with combinations of flutes, oboes, or clarinet, a third in that register can produce difference tones. I have never heard the difference tone right there at that point. Somebody's like, and what to me, what I hear, I don't know if you hear it the same way, I hear like a monster coming, a roar coming out of the corner of the room. I want to demonstrate, so you guys should too. You guys should make it to the process. Okay, so what I'm going to have you do, would you play the C on the flute? Yeah, I know you can go on here. Play your C. Can you play the E above that? Do you hear it? Now, for those of you that don't see that, you know that portrait of Abraham Lincoln that's made of all little blocks, and you don't see it until you do, and then you can't unsee it. Okay. So the issue with can you guys hear that? Okay, sometimes they just say yes to be polite, but once they hear that, they can't unhear that. Try it again, guys. I'll show you. See again? See. Okay. Now, for those of you that still can't hear it, try this. Same thing again, and after you've gotten there, I'm going to have you sort of to C sharp. And when she goes up to the C sharp, the difference tone should maybe drop a fifth, maybe. Let's see what happens. Do you hear that? Maybe. One more time. Can you hear the change in the difference tone underneath? So it's all well and good to know that it happens. But what are we going to do about it? That's the question. So what I've learned is something that works is if you ever hear that happen, like maybe you have a high note, that you have a high note above it, and you you get that weird monster that you weren't expecting. And I don't know if I can explain why it happens, but you can get that EPC. What I've learned is if the bottom voice of the tube uses a lot of vibrato, it usually disturbs it enough that it goes away. Now, the bottom notes on the clarinet, they usually don't play with vibrato, in which case they'll have to do the top note that uses a lot of vibrato. It'll help a little bit. I've never heard that before, but what happened, it was position 156, first or second note. I think it must have been high B flat on the clarinet versus the E flat above it on the flute. But all of a sudden, I wasn't expecting it. We kind of got to the place I wasn't going to go. Let's take it at 156. Ready? And 156. Crash cymbals. Can you give us a crash you just did at measure 175 4 times? Give us that crash. Yeah, a few things. This is number 21. So a few things about crashes that are interesting. First of all, you always want to think of them as being basically a plan. So you know, top, and you're not doing a beautiful job. A lot of cymbal players kind of clashing together. You want to plan. The second thing is think about the acoustics. Most of you perform at a place with a hard surface, like a wooden stage or concrete, whatever it may be. Most of the time it's a hard surface. If you have a hard surface on your feet, one of the really nice way to be able to help you the ring of the cymbals is to, as soon as you crash them, suspend them over the floor. Because when you do that, the sound waves hit the hard surface and they shimmer up and go everywhere. It's a really nice effect. They don't have a hard surface. You have a padded surface, in which case you can do the opposite and crash up and do it that way. So in this case, go ahead and crash, but instead of just go up instead. And if you want to, it's still getting a little bit of a pop, but also open them up a little bit towards the other. Hear that? See, it's all about, it's a direct, you don't think of cymbals as being a directional instrument. All instruments are directional because of the sounds that they produce. So let's give that a try right here. And let's see, why don't we just take it at, how about 3 parts of 4 178, 4 more times. Okay, right there, of course, the piano and the cymbal crash, right? And ready, here we go. Actually, 4 bars before the end. It's number 12. We talked a little earlier about always looking for something that's different in the music and emphasizing that a bit. In this case, in that measure, one of the most important things that's different is the tonality. How many have been accidental in that measure? Several of you. You're changing the whole feeling of the piece. That accidental is carrying a lot of weight. Okay? So if you are ever performing a piece that has no key signature, this doesn't apply. Because you can't figure it out. Every note's an accidental. But in a piece with a key signature, when you have an accidental, that is significant. Because it's changing the tonality, it's changing a chord, it's doing something. And the players notice it because it's something different. And therefore, when it's different, you emphasize it. So those of you that have the last 4 bars from the God you have to, if you have an accidental, like the first stroke, the second chord, the first stroke, the pony, or the first line of the flute, that note needs to be a little bigger than you think because you're playing out something different. Next thing, I'd like to look at 3 bars before the end. Can I please hear the people that have 3 quarters, 3 bars from the end? Pop, 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 pop. Try that. Ready, and. Notice the last one has a different articulation. Okay? So this also has a staccato. So if what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and play with emphasis, but also with a little less duration. Okay. Also, it's really important. We're at number 10 here. It's very important when teaching accents to remember that most of the time, younger students, not folks like them, maybe here's some names, but younger students tend to think of an accent as more tongue. Use more tongue part. That is actually not the best way to get a good sound on an accent. Any note acoustically that has a space before it will be emphasized. So instead of more tongue, use more space. And that way you get a prettier onset to the note, you definitely still get the effect. Okay? But think more air, more space, rather than more air, more tongue. Now, for the trumpets and the horn, and the first trombone and the alto saxes, what I want you to do is I want you to play 3 from the end. And instead of playing the 8th note that's high, I want you to take a breath there. And this is another thing that's very important for all of us. Where to breathe. Sometimes the players don't need to breathe, but the music does. The music needs a breath for some reason. And plus, they gotta breathe anyway. So why not do it in a place where it helps the music as well as keeps them sitting up in their chair without passing out, you know? So what I would do is take a breath here, and then the next notes, play them a little shorter. Reason? Because they're going to be playing right after you on the horns. And we want to hear all of those notes. So let's try the altos and the trumpets and the horns and the first trombone. Take a quick breath and up, 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 up. Ready, and up. I would go with a little more energy and a little more space. Ready, 2, 3, and up. And of all of those notes, which one's the most important? The last one, which oftentimes is, in this case, it's the one that has the different articulation. So that works that way too. So let's go ahead and play the last 4 bars with everybody. Accidental, something different, play it out. Space, air, and ready, 2, 3, and last note. Just play the last note without the percussion. By the way, is this an incredible percussion section? If I can fit you in my carry-on bag, I have another name for you over there. Anyway, you say something good about human trafficking anymore. Sorry, I can't. Let's play the last note without just as it takes the duration now that's going to inform the length of your last note. Ready, 2, 3. I still think longer on the 2 string keep going soon, longer. Ready, 2, 3. Even longer. And ready, and we're getting there. Trombone's a little longer, bass clarinet's a little longer. Ready, and I think you got the idea. So, not every single one of these things we were able to get to today because they didn't need it. But you get the idea of looking at this handout. There are things you may find that will help you on other pieces, with other ensembles. And I'm just hoping that we can be in some way helpful to all of you. And that's what this clinic is all about. I like to end with music rather than talking. Like, isn't that the way life should be? So can we just play the end for everybody? Let's start at bar 1 to 6 and just play it out. Now, think about all the things we talked about. I covered a lot of topics. You guys are amazing. I just want them to enjoy you, and I want you